My name's Sandra and thank you for joining me on my channel on Modern Living. Today I'm going to teach you how to make one of my favorite drinks of summer, a Lavender Collins. It starts with a simple lavender syrup, and from there we add a few more basic ingredients to come up with a delicious cocktail. If you prefer to use the lavender syrup for a non-alcoholic punch, you can do that as well. One of my favorite things about living in southwestern Ontario is the changes of the season, and I definitely do enjoy the different smells and flavors that each season brings, and I include my lavender syrup in that. It's a drink that I enjoy in the summer, but it's not something that I carry through to the winter months. So let's get started. So the first start to making our Lavender Collins is to harvest our lavender. So I have this relatively large patch of lavender in my garden. It started actually a number of years ago from just one 4-inch pot of lavender. So it really does grow and multiply if you've got a good spot where it's happy to do that. Now I've been watching all week, waiting for these lavender to pop open into bud. I do want to harvest them when they're in flower, but I don't want to wait till the flowers start to go past. So that's really important. It's important that you harvest them at the right time. Now I always find it a little sad to harvest it because I love it so much in my flower bed. However, I can't make a Lavender Collins or a lavender sugar or any of those fun treats unless I do harvest some. So I'm going to just cut kind of selectively. I'm not going to clear cut it because I do want to leave it looking nice in my flower bed. And I just kind of move around and take snips like that. I like to leave a fairly long stem on it because some of these I'm going to use as dried lavender, and then I'm going to wrap an elastic band around to hang them to dry. And some of them I'm going to use as a garnish in my drink, as you'll see later. So I also want to leave those fairly long so they can stick in a tall glass. So I'm just going to keep snipping away here little bits at a time. The bees are sure loving this lavender today too. It's got quite a little crowd of bees. Now this is English lavender, also known as petticoat lavender. I know that some people like French lavender, and it's lovely, very, very fragrant, but it's not hardy in my zone. It doesn't work as a perennial here. So although it looks great and smells great, it's not going to have the same lasting power as this petticoat English lavender. Lavender is the sort of plant as well that you can plant pretty much any time of the year. I know the greenhouse I work at, we get it in around early in the spring, but we also have it in our fall planters. So I often find that my lavender will, if I cut it back after it's done blooming, it'll bloom again. Not as prolifically the second time around, but it is very common for me to get lavender to blossom twice in a season. Okay, so the recipe that I'm making calls for about 3 tablespoons of lavender blossoms. That's going to probably be lots. I'm just going to keep harvesting a bit more so I have some to dry and also to make some lavender sugar with. Now my recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of lavender blossoms, which really isn't very many, but all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take them and pull them off, and I find it works best if you pull them backwards. Instead of pulling them towards the top, they're going to come off better if you push them backwards a little bit just to loosen them, and then they're going to come right off into your bowl. And again, it's not going to be an exact measurement, the 3 tablespoons, but you do want to get a fair bunch of blossoms. Simple syrup is something that is very much open to personal preference. So I like to make a lighter simple syrup than a thick simple syrup. And that just has to do with your sugar to water ratio. So when I say a light simple syrup, I use a ratio of 1 part water, 1 part sugar. You can find recipes that call you for 2 parts sugar to 1 part water, 3 parts sugar to 1 part water. It really depends on how syrupy you want it to be. Now I find if I make 2 or 3 parts to 1, with the sugar being heavier, it just gets to be a really thick syrup, which may be exactly what you want, especially if you're going to use it for something like, say, on ice cream or something like that. That would be really kind of yummy. Vanilla ice cream with lavender thick syrup. That'd be good. But if you're making a syrup for drinks like I am today, I find if I make it too thick, it just sinks to the bottom of your drink, and that can make a cool visual effect, but it does make it a little bit harder to drink and serve. So I'm just going to make mine a nice, light, simple syrup. Again, like I said, 1 part water and 1 part sugar. Okay, so I've got my burner adjusted to be on high, and I'm just going to add in my 1 cup of water. And I'm actually going to add in my lavender buds right away. So I'm just going to pop those in there, and I'm going to let that come to a boil. So this might just take a minute. Hold on here. Now at this point, it's just water and flour, so you don't really have to stir it, but it does never hurt to just mix it in a little bit there. And we're just gonna wait for that to come to a boil. Okay, now that it's started to boil, all we're gonna do is we're going to stir in our 1 cup of sugar. And you really just want to boil it again until it all dissolves. So if you like it to be a thicker syrup, you can boil it longer than that. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't like my syrup quite so thick. So I generally just let it dissolve, maybe boil it for a minute or so after that, and I'm happy with that. It doesn't take long if your water's boiling to dissolve that 1 cup of sugar at all. You certainly don't need to boil it for any extended period of time. While I'm waiting for that lavender syrup to cool, I thought I'll just give you another little tip here about drying lavender. So my suggestion would be, obviously when I was outside, I was trying to cut them all to the same length, but then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put all the blossoms together at the top, kind of like that, so that they're all approximately the same length here. There we go, getting there, getting there. And lavender likes to dry somewhere that's warm, that is away from direct sunlight. And so I'm going to dry it upstairs in an empty closet. So what I'm gonna actually do, I've got that much all together, is I'm gonna cut the other end. Hold on, gotta grab my scissors. Back here, hold on, right there. And I'll probably pull some of these green bits off a little bit, just because it's gonna make it a little thinner in my bunch. My bunch here still looks good. And then I've got these wee tiny little hair elastics. You could use a rubber band, whatever works for you. And I'm gonna put one here. And I'm gonna slide it up a little bit, just like that. And then I'm gonna put one more at the end. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this beautiful little bunch of lavender and I'm gonna hang it upstairs, like I said, in a closet with the door shut, away from the sunlight, which will not only help it to dry, but will make my closet smell fantastic. Now that my syrup's cooled, all I really need to do is pour it through a strainer and into a jar. I like to keep a jar in the fridge throughout the summer so that I can use it as I choose. It's really just as simple as that. Now, the one thing that I do find that's a little bit funny about lavender syrup is that it doesn't look lavender when you're all done with it. It actually looks kind of green. So I like to cheat a little bit and add just a couple drops of food coloring to help it look a little bit prettier in my glass. Now that we've got all our components together, it's time to mix up our drink. So the first thing I'm gonna do is grab a knife and just put a little slice in a piece of lemon right there. And then I'm gonna rim my glass. Real quick, just around the edge. Give it a little spinorama and some sugar. We've got a beautiful glass ready to go. Now, if you're having company, you may wanna do like I did here and make up some ice cubes that have little bits of lavender right in them. If not, that's fine too. Not everybody likes bits of flowers floating in their cocktail. And then to that, you're just going to add 1 ounce of lemon juice. Now, if you're a real diehard, you will squeeze your own lemons, but I'm gonna just use the pre-made lemon juice. You're going to add to that 2 ounces of lavender syrup. And then 1 to 2 ounces of gin or vodka, depending on your preference. And I think it would actually be really neat to try this with some of that Pink Whitney vodka. That would be kind of a cool taste. Okay, and after that, I'm just gonna top it up with soda from my soda stream. You can also use canned club soda. Either one will work just fine. I'm gonna garnish it with that piece of lemon that I used to rim. Add a couple sprigs of mint from my garden just for decoration, and also a sprig of lavender, and a paper or reusable straw to enjoy. And there you have it, a light, refreshing summer drink to enjoy on your patio. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel to see more of what I'm doing in my home and garden.